My name is Martin Bakundana. I'm the founder and team leader at LEM Mindfulness. LEM Mindfulness was founded in December 2019 in response to the increasing cases of mental health in Uganda and globally at large. We have our head office in Kampala, Uganda, and we have another coordinating office in Sydney, Australia. And we plan to set up other offices in Kigali, Uganda, in Nairobi, in Kenya, and London, the UK. We established the organization in December 2019, and shortly after that, the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country. And because of that, most of our interventions have been to respond to the challenges of the lockdown, because especially in Uganda, the lockdown happened in March 2020, and most of the after effects have been felt to date. So some of the achievements that we've recorded to date include one, we've been able to host weekly webinars where we bring in different mental health specialists to talk to us about different topics like depression, like anxiety, like all the other mental health related topics.
Now, every one of us potentially can be unhealthy mentally. Every single one of us can potentially be unhealthy mentally. So when you have good cognitive abilities, ability to stay in full control of your emotions, that when bad things happen to you, you don't overreact. So there are people who, when bad things happen to them, their reaction is just to burst out in tears and cry, even if it's something so small. For others, it's anger management. It's the lack of management of their temper or their anger or their emotions. Anything slight can trigger off a very serious outrage in them, and even to the people that they live with, they might actually lash out at these people. They might actually throw tantrums, or even worse than that, throw punches and fists, go physical and get into a fist fight. Now, of course, for you who are students, allow me to dwell a little bit more about some of the things that could lead you potentially to losing your state of mental health. This is something that you don't even think about, but exams are very stressful. So before you go into exams, ladies and gentlemen, are you well nourished? It's very hard to tell a person who is going into exams to sleep enough, because the very nature of exams is that it happens in a short amount of time. You have so much academic work to master mentally, and also to deliver in the exam room such that you can pass and move on to the next level of your studies or of your life. So exams are very, very stressful. So if you know that exams trigger stress in you, you might want to see a counselor even before the exams, just to tell him or her how you feel and how exams make you feel, such that you prepare yourself adequately. But also you want to give yourself enough time. If you know that at the start of every semester you'll have an exam every 4 months, for example, why do you wait in the second to last week to start reading when you've been studying for 4 months? Why don't you make it a consistent habit to study continually? So that's one thing that, ladies and gentlemen, my young friends who are still in school, you might not even realize is a massive, massive cause of mental illness among young men and women. A lot of young people who have mental challenges, around exam time, they break down. I used to see this when I was still in school. Very, very bright young men and women, they would break down at exam time and they would find themselves in a mental facility for treatment. After the exams, they go back to being normal because the exams are stressful. I've talked about money being a stressor. Money or the lack of it is a stressor. Relationships, these are very common in universities like your own, bouncing from one to the next and the next and the next. Now, if you have a healthy relationship, do everything you can to keep that relationship going. If your man loves you, if your woman loves you, and they are fair and honest and kind to you, generous to you, healthy relationships add a great deal to a good state of mental health. But the reverse is true. Toxic relationships or unhealthy relationships can also stress you and actually lead you to a state of mental imbalance. It may not always be your fault. It might be the individual's fault who you're with, but they simply don't know how to relate with other people. So this is something you need to be mindful of. Relationships on their own can be stressful. How about sleep? This is very common among university students. Most university students don't sleep enough. And when I say sleep enough, I mean a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. In a cool quiet room with lights off. A lot of university students sleep in very noisy rooms. You're playing music all night in your room in which you're sleeping. So ultimately, you'll not get quality sleep because your mind stays actively working. All your senses, your sense of hearing is working because your brain is not completely going into a sleeping pattern. And then you end up tired in the morning. Or you stay up late partying or drinking till very, very late in the night, 3, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and it's habitual. So in a week, you literally have less than 72 hours of proper quality sleep in a whole week. That's very toxic. It's very dangerous. Ultimately, the amount of toxins in your body, in your brain, which are not you're not resting, so you're not detoxing, you're not cleansing your system, will ultimately lead you to a state of poor mental health and eventually mental illness. So mental illness is when your mental health has been adversely affected and you now need treatment, therapy, counseling, or even admission in a mental facility such as Butabika National Referral Hospital for Mental Health. So my dear friends, sleep is very important. You might say, okay, fine, I need to party, I need to kusimbula over the weekend. Fine, there's nothing wrong with kusimbularing. But don't kusimbula every day. You're in club, this, that club, and the other club. Every club in Kampala knows you. All the waiters and waitresses, they know you by first name basis. Hey, Bob, come. Today you don't have money, it's on me. So this is a habit that eventually can lead you to a poor state of mental health. And very similar to that is abuse of alcohol and drugs. This is again a challenge we have in our learning institutions, especially institutions of higher learning. I'm not saying Kyambogo is a victim. No, I'm not. I'm just saying it's a general problem we have in our country and different parts of the world. Now, when I talk about drugs, I'm not talking about Piriton and Panadol and aspirin. I'm talking about drugs for pleasure. Drugs such as heroin, drugs such as methamphetamine, drugs such as weed. Weed is a drug. So marijuana is a drug, it's smoked. Drugs, even cigarettes, are a drug because they have nicotine which alter your mind and your body. So these are all drugs. Alcohol is a substance. So some of us use substances such as alcohol, but how much of alcohol do you use? Do you drink moderately? And you say, yes, I drink moderately. How much? How moderate was moderate? I just had 1 crate of beer. Really? Is that moderate drinking? It's no longer moderate. It's going to destroy your body. It will destroy your physical body, but also destroy your mind. It will alter your moods. Now, mental disorders are basically about mood-altering diseases. And what alters your moods? It's the hormonal imbalances. Because your brain is full of neurons, connectors. These are receptors and connectors and neurons. And then in your bloodstream, you also have hormones, and these hormones are produced from glands, different glands in your body. You have like the adrenaline gland, which produces the adrenaline hormone. You have the pancreas. You have all these glands that produce different hormones in your body. You have the thyroid gland in your throat. They produce different hormones in your body. Now, these hormones help to regulate your moods, or if they're not balanced, your moods go out of sync. That's why you find people with mental disorders tend to be very aggressive. You find them throwing stones, You find them undressing because they have lost their sense of that balance. They have lost the sense of balance. Their cognitive ability. They are not cognitively aware. They have a low self-concept or low self-esteem even in some instances. They don't understand. They have a low sense of self-awareness. So they can even undress and walk around here naked. Yet they were properly dressed just a few minutes ago. So that is mental illnesses. So for you who are still here in school, what are the signs to look out for? Number 1, are you sleeping enough? That's a big red flag. Sleeping a minimum of 6 to 8 hours a night is a big, big factor in keeping you mentally healthy and sane. Sleep, just sleep. Number 2 is diet. Are you eating healthy? The same food that is healthy for your body is also healthy for your mind because your brain takes the best quality ingredients and nutrition first and foremost. That's why people who do mental work, you find yourself very tired, even studying, just reading books. You find yourself very exhausted, but you've not carried any bricks, you've not carried a hoe, you've not been digging, you've not been lifting heavy equipment. Why are you tired? Because the brain is very energy hungry. It drains the best quality glucose, fructose, and all those other ingredients, the good quality nutrition that you eat in your body. When it's digested, the first place it goes to is the brain because it's a central nervous system connected to your spinal cord. So that central nervous system is very energy hungry and requires a lot of good quality nutrition. Therefore, the second thing you want to ask yourself is, am I feeding properly? The third thing is, if I dare use alcohol, how much of it is enough? Do you drink until you black out and your friends have to lift you back to your hostel or to your room? Or do you have just enough to make you a bit excited and happy, have a good time, have the good vibes, and then you go home when you're still sober? And if you drink, do you also drive when you're high, completely plastered, and you're driving? You potentially could cause yourself a physical accident and even lose your life or your limbs. Life and limb is very important and irreplaceable in most instances. Then the other thing you want to think about is the quality of your relationships. For goodness sake, don't surround yourself with negative and toxic people. It's okay to unfriend people. I'll tell you here now, it's okay to unfriend people. Don't be guilty if a friend says, but you want shower. Yes, you showered him or her because they were toxic to you. They would have destroyed your mental health in the long term. So don't apologize for toxic people being in your life. If you cut them out, it's okay. It's okay because you want to stay mentally healthy to cut out toxic people from your life. Negative energy. There are people who, when they go into this space, like here in Kyambogo University in this square, the first thing they do is start ranting and raving about all the 30 things they see that are wrong in this place. Same person walks into another space and all they have to say is 30 good things about what they see in the place. I'd rather hang out with that one who thinks of positive thoughts, even when they don't have money. They don't say, man, I'm so broke. They'll be like, man, I just have a temporary incapacity with money. I will replace it soon. They stay positive. They don't be toxic. Even when they disagree with you, if you're in a relationship, they don't fight you and beat you up and end up smashing and breaking things. No, they have a sense of control of their emotions. The fifth one is if you start to discover that you have certain signs and symptoms of poor mental health. For example, poor sleeping patterns. When you're mentally unwell, you don't sleep well. Either you sleep too little or you sleep too much. Not the usual 6 to 8 hours. You might be having a form of disorder called bipolar disorder, which is a form of manic depression, which means that when you go into mania, you work so many hours, and when you go into depression, you sleep so many hours. When you're depressed, you're sad and melancholic and depressed and unhappy, and generally you're moody, you don't want to talk to people, you lose interest and desire in normal things like eating and drinking, being with friends and family. You want to lock yourself in your room alone. You start to have suicidal thoughts and tell yourself how you're useless, you're the worst thing that happened on earth. Why did your parents even waste time bringing you on earth? That is depression. Depression is a feeling of melancholy, a feeling of complete and utter helplessness and sadness, and in some instances coupled with suicidal thoughts as well. Watch out for these red flags. If you start to see these signs, for goodness sake, the university here has a hospital, they have a medical team, they have therapists, they have counselors, fully fledged. Walk into their offices and say, I would like to have a private therapy session with you and unburden what is on my mind. Because talk is therapy. Talk is cathartic, it's catharsis. It's a form of therapy, it's therapeutic, it heals. The more you express yourself, the more you pour out energy. Talk is actually energy. You're releasing energy from your psyche, from your mind. And if you release bad energy, no wonder people who have bad vibes, they just walk into a space and they talk only 2 sentences and you want to get out of that space because they have toxic energy. They're releasing bad vibes, and the bad vibes are infectious. So if you start to feel that way, go to a therapist, go to a counselor and talk to him or her, tell them how you feel and request them to help you to overcome those negative emotions that are overpowering you. Then number 6, you might also want to go into a hospital. The therapist might tell you, now this is beyond me. You need to go to a mental hospital. If they tell you to go to Butabika Hospital, don't be ashamed, people. 30% of Ugandans and all people in the world have a mental disorder. 30%. 14 million Ugandans out of 43 million Ugandans is 32%. So a lot of people have mental disorders. Don't be ashamed. And they are high-ranking people. They drive nice cars, they live in nice neighborhoods, they dress in good clothes, they have nice businesses, they have good bank balances, they own real estate all over the city. They look normal like you and me. The only difference is in their mind they are not normal. They have a mental disorder. So if you know that you're beginning to express those signs and symptoms, if you know a friend or family member or a relative who is expressing those signs and symptoms, offer to go with them to a facility where they can see a psychiatrist. Now, psychiatrists in Uganda are those, well, psychiatry is that medicine that treats the mind. It's a form of field of medicine for mental health. It's called psychiatry. In Uganda, there are only 53 psychiatrists for a population of 43 million Ugandans. So they are very few, they are not enough. But if you have a privilege of seeing a psychiatrist, they will subject you to some blood tests, they might test your saliva, and in the process, they might even scan your brain. And when they scan your brain, they might discover that your brain's formations are not normal, that the waves in your brain are not okay. Either they are too small or too big, or they are overheated, or maybe injured because of lack of sleep. The neurons are injured because of lack of sleep, or because of too much anger and too much sadness over a long period of time. Your brain gets injured, literally gets injured. Just like any other part of your body can get injured, your brain can also get injured and become mentally sick. That's what mental illness means, actually. So in such a case, the therapist and the psychiatrist will work together. The therapist will work on your acceptance of your condition, as the psychiatrist works on your treatment using drugs. Those drugs help to reestablish balance of your hormones, of your neurons, of your moods, such that you're able to stay calm. Now, there are certain two hormones I'd like to talk about which are very, very useful in life, but they are equally, one of them is dangerous. When you're going to win a race, or you've won a race, how do you feel, ladies and gentlemen? How do you feel when you've just won a race? Or if your results come back and you've done very well in exams, you've scored A+ or A star, how do you feel? Euphoric and excited, right? When you take a little bit of beer, the first 1 or 2 bottles, how does it make you feel? A little excited. What hormone is it releasing? Yes, there's adrenaline. Adrenaline is when you're excited about running, or you're scared or fearful. But there's also dopamine. Dopamine is that feel-good factor. How many of you enjoy being near your cell phones, and when you see likes and shares popping up on your timeline, you get excited? What is that? Dopamine. Now, dopamine is that hormone that makes you enjoy the feeling of euphoria and being high, right? And that's why people get addicted, because the feeling of being high is so sweet and addictive that you might keep doing it over and over and over. You ask yourself, why does this young man keep drinking? Because he loves the feeling of being high. That feeling is caused by that that hormone called dopamine. Are we together? Now, the opposite of it is serotonin, which has a calming effect. It calms you down. Now, when they treat you with some of those drugs, they just help to regulate those hormonal imbalances in you, either to increase your serotonin or to just reestablish connectivity and balance in your neurons, because they are out of balance. Basically, that's what mental treatment does for you, those drugs. And so if you take the medicine, you start to feel, if you used to be very hyper, you start to feel like it slows you down. And some people hate the fact that the medicine slows them down. But guess what? The slowing you down is actually meant to preserve you alive. Because if you continue manic, you'll burn up all your resources, your mental resources. You'll suffer from burnout and stress, and you'll eventually break down and actually become physically very, very sick, needing hospitalization. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is what mental illness is about, and that is what mental disorders. Now, let me talk a little bit about some of the disorders that are familiar to me. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I have done quite a healthy dose of research because of the nature of my work. My work is in human resources management. I'm a human resources practitioner. I'm also a certified coach. So as a certified professional coach, I use positive psychology in my work. Now, counselors and therapists also use positive psychology in their work. So there's a lot of similarity. Mine is related to careers. The therapist is related to emotions and hormonal imbalances and relationships and psychosocial issues, problems related to psychosocial challenges, like what was brought about by COVID-19, or a breakdown in a relationship, or financial distress. You've lost a business, you've lost a job. That feeling of sadness brings about a psychosocial problem of depression. So when you now have these challenges, I've talked about bipolar disorder. The second one I'd like to talk about is anxiety disorder. The third one I'd like to talk about is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia simply means split personality disorder. This person is smiling one moment and sad the next moment. They're excited one moment, the next moment they are fighting you, physically fighting you, or they are verbally attacking you. Because they have a split personality, they can be so nice one moment, and the next moment they're a beast, a tyrant. That is a split personality. We call that schizophrenia. And it's very, very dangerous. If you see a friend of yours who behaves like this, for goodness sake, take them to the hospital. They are very dangerous to themselves and to you. Then, of course, you have others like stress. Stress is a form of mental disorder. Okay? Just being stressed. Continued stress will eventually lead to work burnout. And all of these signs are not immune to only adults. Even children can exhibit some of these signs of stress. So explain to children what is COVID-19. Why did we have to stay in a lockdown for 2 years? Why didn't you have to go to school? Children are also stressed and depressed. That's why we are seeing the number of suicides rising even among teenagers. About 2 weeks ago, we saw a headline of a teenage girl, 17 years old, in Wairaka High School, who hung herself in the room, in the dormitory. 2 days ago on Tuesday, my dear friend Andrew Chamagero of NTV tweeted a 22-year-old man had hung himself in the garage in their house. Because these are stresses that are not being treated. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder. If you've ever been abused sexually or physically, it's highly likely that you will suffer from what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. This is very common among soldiers who have just come back from wars. They come back, most of them come back sick with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. When people are tortured and beaten up severely, they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Every time they see that flashing image of a beating or the sound, they go back into that state of torture. They start to sweat profusely. They panic. They go into a panic attack. And that's a state of mental disorder. And they need treatment to restabilize and rebalance themselves. So PTSD, also PCSD, post-COVID stress disorder. A lot of what we're observing today is now post-COVID stress disorder. Because the hard time of COVID has kind of passed, the time when we're in lockdown, but the effects have not gone away. The economy has been destroyed and so on and so forth. So ladies and gentlemen, when you see any of these things, please look out for your dear friends, support them to recover, support them to heal. Finally, why am I sharing this story with you people? It's because I lost my own wife about 2.5 months ago to a mental illness. She suffered from an illness called schizophrenia. She also had bipolar disorder. And all our lives, we had lived with it. I did not know until much later when I started doing research on mental health, because her behavior was a bit funny. All these things I've described to you were common in her. Okay? So ultimately, out of love for her and the children, we decided to check her into a mental hospital, and they tested and proved that indeed she had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, split personality disorder. She had all these errant behaviors. Long story short, eventually she committed suicide. So I'm speaking to you as a survivor of suicide, having lost my spouse and the mother of my children. And I can assure you, if you're having those suicidal thoughts, stop it now, seek help. Go and see a therapist, see a counselor, see a psychiatrist, go to a hospital. Even if they tell you go to Butabika and they admit you, accept. You're better off in Butabika for 2 or 3 months and you come out healthy and well and kicking than dead 6 feet underground and we bury you. Because you'll hurt your loved ones. You'll hurt your loved ones dearly if you contemplate suicide and go ahead and actually finish it or complete suicide. Sometimes committing suicide is also referred to as completing suicide, because you may have attempted. In my experience, suicidal people, that was not their first attempt. In most instances, that was not their first attempt. The previous attempts did not succeed, but this time they completed it. Sometimes they tried pills didn't work. In the case of my wife, she tried pills. We had just gotten married less than 1 year. She tried pills, the pills didn't work. She was able to survive because I called an ambulance and they took her to hospital. 15.5 years later, because we had been married 16.5 years, she eventually completed it. But I can rest assured, I can bet you that in between she might have had certain episodes where she attempted it even when we were not at home, but she failed. So she kept contemplating it. Even though we took her to hospital, she rejected treatment. So my final parting shot is, if they find you to have a mental disorder, it's not a death sentence, for goodness sake, accept it. There are ministers in cabinet who have mental disorders. There are MPs in parliament who have mental disorders. There are CEOs of big businesses and multinational corporations, very successful husbands and wives who have mental disorders. They live positively. The key is in living positively. How do you live positively? Accept the therapy, accept the counseling, accept the treatment, those drugs. They might slow you down in some instances. Just accept that they are keeping you alive. And if they tell you to keep taking your pills every day, it's okay. Taking a pill every day is normal. I mean, think of all other diseases that are chronic, like HIV. People who have HIV, they live on antiretroviral medication every day. People who have diabetes, they live on daily treatment in most instances. People who have hypertension or high blood pressure, they live on daily medication. And you can live to be 90 or even 100 years of age with these disorders. You can live a healthy, happy, complete and composed life if you take your medication on a daily basis, if need be. If you can't adhere to daily medication, go for monthly injections. They can give you monthly injections. Those are 12 injections in a year, as opposed to 365 tablets in a year. So which is easier, the monthly or the daily? Of course, the monthly. So on that note, I'd like to bring my presentation to a conclusion, and I wish you a healthy mind. Just like you can have a toxic body or an unhealthy body, a physical ailment, you can also have a mental ailment. In much as the same way as you can treat a foot and it heals, you can also treat your mind and it heals. The key is in acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Also, you need to fight stigma. Let us use the following hashtags. I'll repeat them here. The first one is stop the stigma. By the way, for those of you who are on social media, on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram and on YouTube. The name is Joseph Ajal. I use my name throughout on all my social media platforms. Or Joe Ajal, Joeajal. So wherever you find Joseph Ajal on Twitter or Facebook, you can follow me. But most importantly, I want you to follow the following hashtags. Stop the stigma. Hashtag stop the stigma. It means you spell it without spaces. Some of you spell stop the stigma with spaces. After stop, space, the space, then stigma, space. That's not a hashtag. It will only hashtag the stop. So you want to hashtag the whole sentence. Stop the stigma. Without spaces. Raise mental health funding. Hashtag raise mental health funding. We only have 1% of our national budget for mental health and only 6% of the entire budget for health generally. Now 1% really, how much can it do for us? We are 43 million people in this country. And 30%, some 14 million are sick mentally. So raise mental health funding. That's the second hashtag. The third one, raise mental health research. We need more research, we need more doctors, we need more nurses, we need more therapists, we need more psychologists, we need more counselors, we need more therapists. We need people in the mental spaces, nurses and so on, to treat our people who fall sick. And let me tell you something. Every one of you seated here knows somebody in your family. Might be distant, might be close, but a relative, a friend, somebody who has a mental disorder. I can assure you all of us have somebody we know. Because 30% means for every 10 people, 3 are sick. The difference is, are you getting treatment? For every 3 people, 1 is sick. Are you getting treatment? Are you accepting the disorder? Or are you refusing? In the case of my wife, she refused. She rejected the fact that she was sick, and she eventually suffered an inevitable consequence, which we all feel very sad and regretful for. So do not refuse treatment, do not refuse therapy, accept. It's not a death sentence, and avoid stigma. We have these terrible words in describing mentally ill people. In Uganda, what do we say? There's only one word for mental disorder. What is that one? Mulalu or Eddalu. And in all other local languages as well. But that word is very bad. It has a connotation of, this guy is out of order. He's like a lunatic. That's wrong. Yet in English, there are over 100 words for disorders. Over 100 disorders. And if you think of anxiety, stress, is it bad? Does it sound bad? It doesn't sound bad. We all get stressed, right? Or bipolar. If they tell you the person has bipolar, you might even think it's a cool thing. Kumbe, it's a disease. Bipolar. It means they flip from one end of the polar to the other end of the polar. North Pole, South Pole. So in other words, they have mood swings which are extreme happiness and extreme sadness. So I'd like to bring my presentation to a close. I want to thank you so much for listening to me. For those of you who have taken my message seriously, if you know a friend somewhere suffering, encourage them to go and see a psychologist, encourage them to see a counselor, a therapist, encourage them to check themselves into a hospital. We need you alive. We can't afford to lose another young life aimlessly. Thank you so much.
We are privileged to have established relationships with some of the major universities in Uganda, starting with Kyambogo University. And we are grateful to the Kyambogo University management for giving us open hand when we reached out to them, especially the counseling department. And we will be launching our first initiative with Kyambogo University on Tuesday, 26th of July, which is the LEM Mental Health Association of Kyambogo University.
I'm Carol Namara. I'm a volunteer at LEM Mindfulness. And we are here at Kyambogo Health Week at Kyambogo University. We've been here since Monday. We are here to create awareness on mental health.
My name is Emmanuel Kayanja. I'm a volunteer at LEM Mindfulness. We handle mental health issues and we work with communities, higher institutions of learning and individuals. We do counseling, we do mental health awareness and anything in line with mental health.
We are a mental health social enterprise which really is determined to create an impact, a mental health positive impact, and to create that awareness in Uganda, not only at Kyambogo University but in Uganda at large.
My name is Nawasa Joan, a third-year student of Business Administration. I serve as a Health Minister, Kyambogo University. I would like to send sincere appreciation to LEM Mindfulness for the support they've given to us. They've been there for us as students. They've offered very many services, for example, counseling, talking about depression, how we can survive suicide, how we can do against thinking that it is all over for us as students, because usually we find very many challenges that cause us to be depressed. But LEM has been there for us to talk to students, to offer guidance, counseling to students, career guidance about the courses we are doing and how best we can put effort and see the roads we are leading to when it comes to our academics.
We have created an impact, we believe, because we have counseled students who really showed that they have been helped after our sessions.
So while here in Kyambogo, we have been basically speaking to young people on different issues, and we have been counseling them. Leading a team and coming together with the entire team has been quite a very good experience, meeting young people, sharing different issues on a personal level. We came along with counselors, professional counselors that have been intervening in issues to do with relationships, career guidance. We actually also tackled the issue of career guidance. Then we also handled those with family traumas, with different counseling sessions that have been helping these young people.
Very many students that have been mentally challenged, we've always sent them to the people from LEM Mindfulness to have a talk with them, and they've really come out as better people, because talks with professional counselors, professional people that have knowledge about how we can deal with mental health is always important for us as students, and it has become so much impactful on us as students. I think we're better than we were before we've actually held this health week where LEM Mindfulness participated.
The effect of such a program in a university like Kyambogo, I think it will produce more people with a sound mind, whereby they are very much aware of their mental health. For example, on a personal level, as I was discussing with a few, many did not even know that they are experiencing some challenges until when you have that picture of enlightenment on about who you are and what you're experiencing. Many come to discover. So we are going to have scholars with that clear awareness of their mental health and very much aware of what to do whenever they are into positions of distress and they are willing to speak to somebody.
We have also been doing the mental health essay challenge, which we have concluded today, and we have given out certificates to the winners and the prizes which we promised them. Yeah, we appreciate all the participants for their participation in this essay competition, and we appreciate your efforts towards raising awareness on mental health in Uganda and the world at large.
We are also going to extend such drives into other universities like Makerere, KIU and UCU, And then we are looking forward to expanding it to even upcountry to push further the gospel of mental health, because it is very important, especially in institutions of learning, higher institutions of learning. And we are also looking at going down to lower institutions like nursery, secondary, and even primary schools, where we can expand this gospel of mental health. We look forward to expand into something that can touch each and every life in each university across the country. And then we are also looking at reaching out other communities like refugee camps, slum areas, and women leadership groups in different communities.
We believe that if we continue this, we continue our campaigns like this, then mental health in Uganda will be positively affected.
So some of the challenges that we have faced include funding, because as you realize, we established ourselves shortly before the COVID-19 pandemic. And so some of the sponsors that have been promising us money have also been suffering from these challenges of COVID-19. And so we have had those challenges of financing. However, we are grateful to our partners like UBTEB, who have come in and given us support, Galaxy FM, as well as Girl Women Foundation Uganda, as well as Power Concert Uganda. We are grateful to them for coming up to support us in some of our initiatives. As an organization, LEM Mindfulness has developed a model of working with partners, as well as collaborating with different other social entrepreneurs in this space. And some of the partners that we have on board include the Rotaract Club of Kampala North, and we signed an MOU a few days ago, and we are grateful to them, and we are looking forward to working with them in pushing the message of mental health.
I'm married with 2 children. I am a crochetpreneur working with O'Shea Hooks and Pearls, and I'm a volunteer with LEM Mindfulness. O'Shea Hooks and Pearls is a social enterprise. We are passionate about working with people, and we work especially with single mothers. And LEM Mindfulness has a vision that is very similar to what we do, and we thought partnering could help us to go further. We believe that as a social enterprise, we can access more people, we can be able to help more people. Crocheting is therapeutic, so it helps people who are stressed, it releases serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone, and we believe that as our way of corporate social responsibility, we can give back to the community by teaching people how to crochet, and the best way is to work with LEM Mindfulness, since their values resonate a lot with O'Shea Hooks and Pearls values.
My name is Caroline Bapuga, and I'm the Vice President of the Rotaract Club of Kampala North. I'm currently volunteering with LEM.
And just like any other upcoming startup, it's challenging because we don't have the financing to pay competitive salaries. We have therefore developed a model which is to work with volunteers, and I'm very grateful to a number of our very enthusiastic volunteers, the young men and women who are doing a lot of work to take this message of mental health, especially to the student community. We had 2 events at Kyambogo University, and they were all done by these volunteers. We don't pay them salaries, but they are dedicated and committed to the message of taking mental health to the different people who need it. We are so grateful to them. We are also in partnership with the KIU Western Foundation to help take this message forward. We are speaking to other organizations like SCCA, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants of Uganda. We are speaking to organizations like the Office of Auditor General, and they are all promising to come on board. Obviously, we are grateful to our university partners, Kyambogo University for starters, who are already on board, Uganda Christian University, we are in advanced stages, Kampala International University, we have an engagement coming up next month. We won our very first grant slightly about 2 weeks ago in the ECD Innovations Challenge, which was hosted by the Early Years Foundation in partnership with the European Union and KANO Foundation. We emerged as one of the top 18 social entrepreneurs who are going to benefit from the funding that the Early Years Foundation has received from the European Union and the KANO Foundation, and we are grateful to the team at the Early Years Foundation for giving us this opportunity to work with them in pushing across the message on mental health. As an organization, we are doing our best to reach out to everyone who is affected or anyone who is caring for those who are affected with mental health. But it's a big challenge, it's a big task ahead, and we are calling out the public, as individuals, as organizations, come and join us in this fight for mental health. There's a lot of stigma, and we need good people like you to come in and support us so that we can push this message of mental health ahead.